Today I'm going to be breaking down how to make and set up a remote interview with director of photography Jewel Davis. We have a setup here for a TV show called The Dark Side of the 90s. And we have our producer that's going to be interviewing our subject that's looking straight down through the barrel of the lens, but it really feels like he's on a Zoom call with the producer, as the producer is a different location asking the right questions. So we're going to go over the entire setup, how the two cameras are set up, how the producer can see this, and how the director of photography set up the lighting, set up the room in this very boring room. He made it look pretty interesting, and really just break down how we do this. We're here with Jewel, and he's going to be walking us through the remote interview live setup, subject straight to lens action going on. So how did you set this up? What's the process?
Well, first we set the frame.
Okay.
So we figure out where we want to place talent, get the chair in.
So how did you set up this framing, being that I first came in here and it was a super boring room, and you basically moved all the furniture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, why this?
So I guess what I'm always looking for is how to maximize the depth in the frame so we have nice fall off. In a tight room like this, what we had to do was basically just pull all the furniture out. So we open the space up, and then we find two angles that allow us to see into the deepest part of the room. So that way,
Which is straight into the kitchen.
for this setup, it made the most sense to be shooting that way towards the kitchen. Cameras are in a different room, and we're basically seeing into the next room. And then we have a lot of depth, the most as we can get in this tight space to help us kind of hide the fact that it's a tight room and it's kind of boring. So
Okay, and then you set up the black fabric because it was spilling too much light in?
for this show, the kind of tone and the mood for it is pretty high contrast, like a 3-to-1 kind of thing. So you want it to be pretty dark inside. For the windows here, we just covered half of the big window with black. We left the curtains doubled up on the other end, so we have a little light coming in, and we have a little bit of a highlight in the frames. But we wanted to minimize as much ambient light in the room as we could. So that's why we put this black solid. We hung it up on the window here to cover part of the window.
Okay, and then for the light, just what light is this, and what was the strategy behind just setting it up like this?
This is the Aperture P300. It's a pretty powerful 1x1 panel, RGB. I can control it from my phone, which is super helpful when you don't have a lot of people to help you out. So I can sit here at the monitor and adjust my color and my intensity. We start with aiming it at talent, and then based on how much light is spilling behind him on the wall, we'll determine the final kind of the pan direction. So essentially what we did here is we just wasted it off the wall, but he's still getting enough light on his face, on his key side, but we took some off the back wall by wasting it off, so that way there's still some separation between him and the background. All we had today was just this light, and also because we have a kind of a slimmed down dock, mobile kit, we don't have a ton of heads to play with. So priority is key light, obviously, and then then it's really relying on whatever lamps they've got into place.
So we use that lamp.
We brought this lamp
That's
in.
your own bulb, right?
We put a bulb in there, the Aperture B7C, so I could dial in the color that I want, the intensity that I want for my phone.
And then we have this up here.
Back here is the Amaran T2C, just a 2-foot LED tube. I'm typically using it as some sort of rake light on the background. So, because we still needed a little light back here, and we had the overhead light on as a starting point, and then we dialed in this in this position to give us a little bit of direction. So it's kind of raking the background and coming towards talent.
To light up this wall a little bit?
We'll light up the wall a little bit, the background, and just add some directionality. In the frame, you can actually, to my eye, I can see some direction coming from it, as opposed to if we just use that overhead, it would just be lighting up everywhere, kind of washing. But with this, we're actually adding a little bit of a rake. It's not the best light for that particular task, but it's what we got.
So after the full setup and making this boring room look very good somehow and getting depth, this is the shot we managed to come up with, or Jewel managed to come up with. This is the wide angle at 35 millimeters, and this is the locked off straight to camera shot that looks like you're just on a Zoom call. So our subject was a little bit shorter, so it made sense. but this is basically the shot. Okay, walk me through this. Okay, so basically the subject doesn't feel like he's looking down the barrel of the lens. He's actually looking at a screen that's mirrored, and this mirror is making him feel like he's basically on a Zoom call instead of looking down the barrel of a lens, the eye of Sauron. So yeah, what's that setup?
Essentially, you pull up your Zoom call on your laptop, and then you've got a dongle going into the computer that has all these different ports on it, one of which is an HDMI. Basically making this monitor here on the teleprompter a second monitor. I'm able to send anything from the computer over HDMI onto that screen. So once you get your Zoom call up, you can just drag the Zoom call over to that screen, and then that screen's reflecting, or that mirror is reflecting the screen that shows the producer on it to the glass, and then the talent can look directly at the camera and see the producer on the screen.
And the producer can hear, like, from the Zoom call, they can actually hear this audio.
So the producer's actually hearing our audio that we're capturing. We've got 2 channels here. We've got the boom and we've got the lav that'll be on him. Both are going directly into camera, and then everything is being sent over SDI into our Blackmagic switcher. We've got 2 lines from each camera going in. One is a clean feed with no information on it, so the producer can just see talent. And then the other one is for me, so that way I can see all of the camera information, our frame rate, resolution.
So that's why you have SDI 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So 1 is for him, 2 is for you.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, same thing with that one.
Same with that one,
So
exactly.
we have 4 SDI cables going all the way through, all connected to this Blackmagic device, which is then connected to your computer.
Then that goes into the computer. So we have an USB-C output coming from here. This thing is taking all the camera feeds and then sending it out this USB cable into our dongle here.
And this dongle, what is this dongle connected to?
The computer.
This dongle is connected to the computer, but then you have other things going on. So what is the rest of the things?
Yeah, so this dongle, we've got our computer charger, the HDMI cable for the teleprompter. We've got the USB-C cable that's receiving the Blackmagic feed. And that is how we're able to show the talent over Zoom to the producer. We're basically using this dongle and this switcher here, we're allowing Zoom to recognize this device as a screen.
Okay, and then you have extra internet ports just to strengthen your internet with a remote Wi-Fi thingy.
Yeah. Well, essentially 2 strips of internet. You know, we've got the local internet here, the Wi-Fi that we're pulling directly from their modem into our device here. And then we've also got an AT&T hotspot that was just collecting the cell signal that's around.
How are you running this whole thing? What does your setup look like?
Program here called Speedify. This is what's marrying our 2 internet signals. Cheap app, I think it's like $10 or something. But essentially, this thing will take as many internet signals as you allow it to take, and then it'll combine them to make one combined signal. So you get like as much speed as you can capture using however many devices you have. We only have 2. I've used 4 at a time before. Sometimes you're in a remote situation and you don't even have local internet, so then you would have like several hotspots that are all grabbing cell signal. We've got an AT&T one, a Verizon one, a T-Mobile one, all different types of cell service. It'll take them all and make one for us that we'll use to stream.
Is the remote producing becoming like way more common?
Yeah, remote producing has kind of become like the way it is now. After COVID, like people were trying to figure out ways to produce content but have very small teams. So doing it this way, essentially just you and I can be here running the show, and the producer and the coordinator and anybody else doesn't need to be here anymore, because they can actually see what we're shooting. They can give us framing notes and exposure notes all over Zoom. And this also allows like client to see it if you're doing like some kind of ad or branded piece. And then like client wants to also see what we're shooting. They can just log on to a Zoom and they can also see what's going on.
Okay, and then I saw you were constantly staring at this, even though it was a locked off shot, and like touching buttons and whatnot. Like, what are you doing if it's just a locked off shot?
So this monitor here is connected to our switcher. Using these buttons here allows me to switch between the camera angles. Camera 1, and camera 2, and that's the information from camera
1 and the information from camera 3, camera 2.
Just because we don't have an operator monitoring both cameras individually, I'm doing it by myself. So periodically I'm just going back and forth between camera 1 and camera 2, just making sure that our light levels haven't changed that much with the sun, because you know, in a situation like this where we are using windows a little bit, as the sun changes, the light level changes a little bit. So I'm just going back and forth just to see what changes were happening and if we needed to make any adjustments in camera.
And then you're also monitoring audio.
Same thing, yeah. So this monitor here is also taking in the audio from both of these signals that we're receiving through the SDIs. Also using this switcher, I can toggle between the boom pole capture and the lav capture by just hitting these two mic buttons back and forth.
How do you choose what the producer can see?
So the producer's gonna see whatever is being taken.
So whenever you're switching through, they're also seeing it switch through.
Yeah, so over here is a preview. These are preview buttons. So only I am seeing this change because it's in the preview.
Oh, okay, so the red means...
But the red are the live ones. So when you hit these back and forth, that's actually taking it to the Zoom.
So how do you, is there a specific program you need to show it on Zoom or anything?
No, Zoom does it. Zoom will take your video sections here. This drop-down menu is showing me the options you have that Zoom recognizes as camera feeds. So like, here's your typical, your front camera, your webcam, and then you just click the Blackmagic icon and you bring up the switcher feed.
Easy.
Pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. It just takes time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of cable. Stream, there's always a problem with the stream. There's always a bit of troubleshooting, but once you get the hang of it and you've done it a few times, it goes up pretty quick.
Sweet, so that is the live stream remote producer straight to camera angle for the subject setup.